Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Business Process and Decision Management Keynote at Interconnect 2015. Please welcome General Manager Middleware, IBM, Marie Wieck.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks very much, and I'm delighted to be here seeing all of you. I'm in a little bit different role. I know a lot of the people that are in this room around our Smarter Process portfolio, but I'm really excited to be here in a new role as part of the new systems unit as the General Manager of Middleware. And for those of you that haven't heard more about it, we're really bringing together the whole notion of a digital platform leveraging our WebSphere, our Smarter Process, our digital experience, as well as our Rational and Tivoli parts of the portfolio. So it really provides a great opportunity to focus on all of the Smarter Process use cases, which, as you heard about this morning, the whole notion of cloud is all about changing that business process transformation in the era of digital. And some of the trends that we're seeing just reinforce that over and over in terms of social and mobile, cloud and big data. 90% of the world's data created in the last 2 years. And you heard this morning, 80% of new cloud workloads and applications are data intensive. I thought the most interesting piece, 100% of line of business applications are going to be developed for mobile, presenting new use cases and new requirements and expectations for those customers in the engagement model that they need to see and the kind of digital experience they're looking for. We've seen a fourfold investment by 2013 in cloud-delivered applications, and last year, for the first time, the mobile transactions and commerce exceeded that on the web. So the changes are fundamental, and they're expanding even further as we now consider all of the Internet of Things scenarios. 75 billion devices expected. That's up from an estimate by 2020 that used to be 25 billion. So we're already seeing an exponential growth even in the estimates of the number of connected devices and all of the inputs that we then try to bring together. And as we heard from Citi this morning, I thought that was really interesting in the whole notion of the amount of disruption that we really get if you can imagine and then develop and then disrupt industries. But it is having a very fundamental effect on what customers' expectations are and the whole notion and need for customer centricity. And all of the changes that those trends are driving are really affecting how consumers and how your direct users are experiencing that service. I know with the amount of travel that I do, the notion of credit card fraud alerts and trying to identify that is something that I value, but I've been one of those 2/3 of the credit card fraud detections where it really was a legitimate transaction with me. They just didn't realize that I was in one city in the morning and a different city in the afternoon. How do you add more insight into those to actually change the model and the process and make it more integrated? The other notion of what this does in terms of security exposures and how it's driving financial performance implications back to the enterprise are some of the things that we're really trying to address. So we really want to set the stage on what are those smarter process imperatives? What are the things that you need to consider as you think about the cloud impact for business process transformation, as you think about these client and customer-centric workloads? And we really think there are 4 fundamental ones, and they come up over and over again. Acting in the context of the data. The whole notion of trends we've heard like, the mobile moment and taking the context so that those systems of insight can actually have a direct impact. when customers in our suite have actually engaged in that fashion, we've seen instances where they can have 3 times the response rate for the response to those situations and get that back to their clients. That kind of impact allows you then to make the change in the moment and have that kind of direct correlation. The whole notion of simplicity and speed and how we're accelerating this. I thought the Coriell example was a natural case, and they actually, all of their work on DNA sequencing and tying it back to the work that they do on trying to detect drug interactions had a major effect on quality of care. But the way they were able to deliver that was actually a combination of leveraging cloud resources with business process automation to bring the 2 pieces together and see 80% improvement in the delivery that they were expecting to stand everything up themselves. And accelerating that engagement model so that you really are designing right up front for social and mobile is a fundamental aspect, so that you can reduce the onboarding and so that you can actually get that impact and the decisions automated with the client. And you can't disregard the whole host of new data sources and new insights you can deliver from Internet of Things. And leveraging the digitization of data, whether it's DNA, whether it's other sources, whether it's inputs from your consumers and where they are, all have an effect. And when leveraged in an integrated process, can reduce the whole cost as well as speed efficiency by 25%. Those kinds of combinations are really powerful, but how do you deliver it? So we have been bringing together all of the capabilities that we really think about in automating processes, streamlining decisions, acting in the moment in the right use cases as part of our smarter framework for process execution. And really targeting some of the new users as well. One of the most important influencers that we're seeing in some of our recent engagements has actually been the COO and the Chief Digital Officer. Those connections, customer centricity, operational efficiency, all really critical to the successful execution. And getting that top-down buy-in is also really important. So we've really considered the aspects of social and mobile, those systems of engagement. We've brought together case capability, operational decision management, smarter process execution and choreography, along with discovery and design, leveraging some of our IBM design thinking about the holistic view of the experience and how it's delivered. And that's not just about the UI. That's not just about the end user aspect of the app, but the whole quality of service and the speed of execution that gets delivered for that experience as well. And a fundamental piece of this is also how it's delivered. 2 key elements, both the skills and the technology. We think we've brought those technology aspects together, but we also want to make sure that the skills are available with the ecosystem and with the methodologies for best practices. And one of the successful aspects of that is leveraging centers of engagement and bringing those centers of excellence together so all the participants in a process can really leverage those capabilities, share knowledge, and get the best outcomes. We're also trying to make sure we have flexible delivery options for all of these, whether it's delivered as a standard deployed service within your own IT organization, whether it's a SaaS service on the cloud, or whether you're leveraging for new development activities in your systems of engagement, the services in terms of choreography or workflow, decision-making rules directly as part of Bluemix. So we're trying to make sure we have both the delivery models and the type of business models that are needed to extend those through to your end organization to make those projects successful. And this is all based on the experience of over 5,000 customers that we've been working with over the last several years that we want to pass along. And let me give you just a couple of examples of how that has been put in action. I thought this was a great one. Shepherd Color. They are a fourth-generation family-owned company, Cincinnati, Ohio, have about 500 people, but they operate on 3 continents, so they have international scale. They provide color pigment that is actually leveraged to provide high-fidelity color in unique situations, weather conditions, heat, really holding the color and having that impact for industrial users. And they wanted to continue to extend their growth and automated their own manufacturing processes using BPM, and were able to drive 50% improvement in their productivity by automating their batch processes. Some of those taking up to 12 pages of individual steps in how they actually constituted the color batch. And their now digital color batch is allowing them to have much faster rate and pace of scale of delivering responsive capabilities to their end customers, all having a positive impact because they were able to leverage it in the cloud, because they don't have the level of IT capability that would have allowed them to do that otherwise. Another great example, Blue Shield of California, servicing 3 million Californians and a very large provider that is certainly also seeing the Affordable Care Act and some of the things that they need to do to handle enrollment periods where you really see peak usage and how that affects the processing. They had a very successful combination, 5-fold increase in customer adoption to handle that influx of demand by, again, leveraging a combination of cloud capabilities through Pure App in conjunction with process automation and decision support from ODM, and leveraging our digital experience and portal technologies for the end user enrollment. So they were able to bring together all the aspects, the front-facing client capabilities, the back-end processing of rules of who was entitled for enrollment, and deliver it very quickly to handle the peak needs and also handle all the services. So those are just a couple of the examples of the kind of impact this can have. And the team is now going to take you through some more of the opportunities that we have and some of the customer examples. But before we go there, any of you who were in the main tent this morning saw Jerry Cuomo rocking the house, and we're going to turn it over now to a video where you're really going to see his rock star capabilities. So let's roll the video.
IBMers by day, rockers by night. Mind the Gap has pushed boundaries and ignited fans around the country. Let's take a look at what makes this band tick on this edition of Beyond the Music.
When it comes to Mind the Gap, these guys live their music. They are rock and roll. They're the real deal.
What you have to realize about the Mind the Gap band is that these guys were revolutionary.
I started playing the drums when I was 8 years old.
I kind of dabbled when I was a kid. My family was always really musically inclined.
Growing up in the Bronx, in the disco era, on the musical side of rock, but kind of was pulled in by the funk.
Bronx bombing bass player Jerry Cuomo, guitarist Adolfo Rodriguez, bad boy Barry Mazakowski on drums, vocalist Mark Haberkorn, and electric shredder Stan Cox on lead guitar make up Mind the Gap, one of the most exciting bands of our time.
Why the name Mind the Gap? No one could ever figure that out.
Mind the Gap is not your typical rock band. With all the proceeds going to charity, Mind the Gap has rocked their way into our hearts.
Watch your step, watch the people around you, and that's what we do in Mind the Gap.
We all come from very different backgrounds.
It's always been difficult to categorize the band because they're influenced by so many different genres.
We're all kind of different, musically, we like different things, anything from country to funk.
Climbing to the upper echelons of rock stardom, Mind the Gap needed a way to document where their hits were played so they could get royalty payments.
We were pulling stats in these kind of spreadsheets and documents.
We didn't know who was listening, how much they were listening to, you know.
We joined BMI, the largest music rights organization. They track when our music gets played publicly and ensure we get paid. Of course, we turn around and then donate that to charity.
BMI processes over 1 trillion transactions annually. With help from IBM Smarter Process and BPM, BMI keeps up with all this data efficiently to drive simplicity.
The way I see it, if it's good enough for the biggest acts out there like Taylor Swift, Maroon 5, then it's good enough for Mind the Gap.
So with BMI, you know, we've taken this paper and we've just gotten rid of it. And now we're kind of building on real analytics and real insights.
With their music performance identification and administrative services taken care of through BMI and Smarter Processes, one thing is certain, we have a lot to look forward to from Mind the Gap in the future. Up next on Beyond the Music, we talk with Taylor Swift to hear how her newest album was influenced by Mind the Gap.
Please welcome Vice President, Product Management, Smarter Process, IBM, David Millen.
Wow. So that was a fun video. Revolutionary? Wow. I even know those guys. I mean, I work with them. And I think maybe temporarily it reminded me of 20 Feet from Stardom. I said reminded me of that. But rather than that part, how about if I invite up a couple of my colleagues to join me on stage in a second, and what we'll do is we'll talk about the reality of Smarter Process in the BMI story. So let me welcome up my colleagues now, Jerry Cuomo, our CTO of Middleware, and Jim King, Senior Vice President of Business Operations at Broadcast Music, Inc. Jerry? Jim? Have a seat, guys.
So obviously that was kind of an alternative view of reality, but the fact is that to some extent it was real. I mean, Mind the Gap is a real band, and we do play real music, so we do have original songs. So how did you help Mind the Gap, and can you help bands like them out there?
Well, first of all, it's great to be here with the heart and soul of Mind the Gap. The bass player is always the heart and soul. And David, thank you as well. Absolutely, we can help you. That's what BMI is here to do. We support new members as well as the members we've had for decades. You guys really do rock it. It was obvious. We all can see that. And everything you do, it starts with that song, that creative form, that true creative form. And in today's world, we have to bring great technology to bear to help you be successful. So BMI, what we do is we represent songwriters, publishers, composers, and lyricists, and your original music is what we protect. Bands like Mind the Gap or American Authors, another great indie band, they work hard across the music landscape, and it's our job to help you be successful. We bring our music industry relationships and our technology and our solutions to help fans hear your alternative funk. I like country and funk, that's pretty interesting. So much is happening in today's world. So many more consumers are listening, and music it just has so many different ways to be delivered to the marketplace.
Yeah, so Jim, that's a great point and great story here. So obviously it's that connection thing, that customer centricity, or artist centricity in this case, that is really the special thing you do. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. BMI has at its core a supply chain. We may be in the music industry, but we are about the supply chain. And you toil, you write, you get the gigs, and then we register your musical works so we can license that music to many businesses that want to take advantage of music in their business. Hundreds of thousands of businesses, including entertainment channels, restaurants, bars, other eateries, radio stations, they all license our music, your music, so they can have it in their business. When that great song from Mind the Gap is played, we know it, and we count it as a performance. And those counts we distribute then through royalties to you.
We got 14 cents last month. Thank you.
14 cents is awesome.
Yes.
It's a start.
Yes, it is.
It is certainly a start. But what makes your story unique is the digital transformation aspects of it. It's really the recomposition of the business flow to account for not only some of the market forces you're talking about, like cloud and mobile, but also for BMI, it was a transform or be left behind moment.
To a degree, yes, absolutely. Our supply chain needed to run on more cylinders. There's just so much more information that's happening in our music space. We went from historically tracking a lot of analog music, of course, in the early stages of BMI, to now we're tracking music across so many different outlets, digital delivery and streaming offerings. So as you said, this was a transform, innovate or die kind of discussion. Maybe not quite die, but certainly innovate to be successful. Much like a music artist must sometimes transform, so did BMI. And that's where we are. So when I think about music, today music is technology. And in many ways, technology is music. They're so hand in hand. The change in one drives the other. As you see with the data needs you had to run Mind the Gap as a business almost. Mobile technology, cloud-based storage, apps, they're everywhere, like Shazam. And in our world, very large data and analytics are a must-have investment to stay current. We've been transforming forever, but the pace of transformation is what is so crazy right now. So we must model our business. We must represent our supply chain as a set of business rules and a set of business processes that we can then change much more quickly than we ever have before.
So Jim, this was done through a partnership and a team. You worked with IBM and Prolifics. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yes, it's through our partners that we are successful. Both IBM, Prolifics were critical to us. We leveraged the key thoughts of both organizations. We leveraged, of course, the technology to speed our process for better innovation, better process discovery, and how we model that in the cloud, leveraging big data for our trillion-plus transactions annually, but also the ability to leverage this data in context. It was mentioned earlier in the opening. The context of how music is used is very important to us because at BMI we value music, and it is that context of music usage that helps us value music.
You said a trillion? You said trillion.
Trillion, yes.
Pretty impressive.
And it's growing constantly.
Pretty impressive.
So IBM really does provide the technology stack we have that we're working with IBM on does represent the heart of our software stack. And working with IBM and Prolifics has given us that starting point. It really gave us that starting point to leverage this new world. So when I was thinking about that starting point, we can't forget mobile.
Yeah.
Because when we were speaking earlier from Mind the Gap, you live on your mobile device. So our goal is to deliver our information to you through many different mobile capabilities, such as knowing where music is played. Where's that next place you should get a gig? It's pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah. So now you're kind of familiar with some of our music, or at least you are now.
It's amazing. Yes.
And we're diverse. And, country, rock and roll, funk. With the diversity of that, we're not the typical band on many levels, but you can't really label us. So how would you pinpoint our audience? Tell us more about some of the magic behind that.
Okay. Well, it is tough. Mind the Gap is a genre of their own, and we will be creating that genre, I believe.
Okay.
Or you are, actually.
MTG.
MTG, yeah. That's right.
But I do have a day job, just in case that doesn't work out.
Okay, David was telling me about that.
I made sure he was still in on that side. Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Good. So again, the beauty of what we're doing is by modeling the processes of our business, which could include not only how we understand where music is being performed, but what regions of the country or regions of the world may like different types of music. That can help empower you to understand, well, maybe we need to, especially, let's say we're based in Georgia, what type of music is being consumed in the cities and towns of Georgia? That could help Mind the Gap, especially if you're, of course, based there, or Raleigh, as the case may be, in North Carolina. So it's this integration of our data, and our business process modeling and our analytics capabilities that delivers this value.
Yeah, that sounds great. I mean, it really brings it all together. So, so can BMI represent Jerry? I mean, can you tell us how that digital partnership might work and maybe how we might get paid so we can continue to fill the coffers at the charity through his dear wishes?
Yes, absolutely. We would never turn away from a new indie band like Mind the Gap. Although new, you've been around for a while, so you're creating your own genre still. So let's illustrate the BMI supply chain quickly. What we do is we take information in from over 3,000 sources. For example, Netflix. Netflix reports their performances to us. We take this information into our new platform we've just launched, IBM Sterling Connect. From this, we use BlueWorks Live, BPM, Operational Decision Manager, ODM, to represent the modeling and processes necessary to understand the information within the platform. Then we use technology such as, what's in Shazam, for example, that many of you might use on your phone to understand what's being performed out in the marketplace, and of course all of our own technology for understanding that music. Then we use Pure Data Systems and Cognos as a marriage to monitor where your music is played. All of this ties together, and the last part of our supply chain is to generate the reports necessary to pay the royalties to Mind the Gap as their music is performed.
Awesome.
So, over to you.
Yeah, so.
Or over here.
Yeah.
Well, you're the indie band.
I'm just having trouble.
Let's make it up as you go here.
I'm not sure how long I can keep this up anymore.
Do it with a straight face, Deborah. Come on now. Get it together.
All right. No, seriously. How can you help Mind the Gap get noticed? I'm not sure. Marie's giving me these looks these days, and I want to make sure I have other options. But
that's true.
How can you help us get noticed? And not just for us, but for the charities that we support.
Sure. And that's a great thing, actually. Yeah. Well, getting noticed really takes a village, and we're just a part of that village. Again, it all begins with a song for us, and we represent your songs, we register them, we license them. We give you exposure both through our system approach, our processes that we have, but also through the relationships we have in the industry. We have a great writer-publisher organization that works with groups like yours and helps make them successful.
Great. So Jerry, I'm excited for you because it sounds like that artist centricity, that trust, that sort of ability to transform, it's real value, right? And a little make-believe, but real value here. And Jim, I think some of your business results speak to that, right?
Yes, if you look at the numbers and the growth, we track hundreds of billions of performances a year, and that's performances of a song, whether it's on a streaming service or whether it's a radio station or through a composition for a movie. Our goal is to track all of that information and bring value to you as a songwriter or a composer or a publisher. We manage a repertoire of approaching 10 million musical works, and we license hundreds of thousands of places where music is played.
Numbers are staggering.
So we've been doing this for a long time, and again, what BMI is about is valuing music, valuing that both from the standpoint of a consumer as well as a producer of that music. Music will always be a part of us. It's a part of our memories, our youth, it's where we come from, but it's also a part of our dreams. So it's great to be a part of Mind the Gap.
Good.
So that's a great story, Jim. I'd like to say thank you for sharing your story with us today. Appreciate it and looking forward to the continued partnership.
All right, thank you, David.
Thank you.
Yep.
Jim, thanks. So Jerry, this sounds like a good fit for you. Now we just got to figure out what content from that long list of stardom-style, repertoire do we pick to maybe have BMI represent for you?
We have a wide range of stuff. We have a whole 7 or 8 songs to choose from. From Bring Back the Funk to actually we have a song called A New Way. We could have used it as the Interconnect theme song here, but so we have a range of songs to pick from.
Okay, that's great. So no offense, I don't know if people in the audience already know it. I don't know how many Gappies are here. So maybe what we can do is have a little bit of fun and get some help in enlisting the audience and helping us select the right content.
Okay. Sounds like a good thing to do.
Right. So, Jim, thanks again for the story. I think at this point, what I'd like to do is invite up a couple of my colleagues, Curtis Miles, me and Jeff Goodhue, so that they can come on up, and we're going to have a demo that's going to enlist the audience and maybe helping us select some of the content. And the demo is going to build on some of the great capabilities and advances we've made in the product recently, but they're also going to highlight some interaction stuff. So, Curtis, Jeff, over to you guys.
Okay, great. Thank you, David. So like David said, we are going to take you a little bit behind the scenes to see what that process actually looks like for Mind the Gap or any other band to actually start to submit their songs to BMI to be able to manage their rights. So what you see up on the screen is a URL. So if everybody can take out your phones, and we'll see if we can bring down the Mandalay Bay network here. Take out your phones and go to that URL on your mobile browser. And what we're going to do is, because, like David said, you may not yet have heard any of Mind the Gap songs, we're going to ask you a few questions to determine your musical tastes and use business rules to figure out which of Mind the Gap songs would most likely be your favorite. And then we're going to use that one to submit it into BMI. Okay? So to track us along the way, I'm going to bring up our process diagram, and I'm going to have Jeff walk you through the different steps here that are part of this music rights submission process.
Great. Thanks very much, Curtis. All right, so we have our executable business process up here. We've got to get Jerry going. I'm going to just walk you through a little bit. We're going to start off with an optional step on the left-hand side of our diagram here to submit some artist information. If he's a new artist to BMI, we all know he is. The next thing we're going to do is, of course, record those songs. Sounds like he has a couple recorded. We'll get in the other ones recorded that are necessary. Then we're going to get to that green box in the middle. That's where I need all of your help. So let's get up those phones, and again, we'll see if the network will maintain its integrity here. We're going to ask you for some help. You're going to fill out some questions on those phones. You're going to answer some information there for us. The data will then be sent from that business process up into the cloud, and it'll be sent through some business rules in IBM Operational Decision Manager. That will allow us to make some decisions with that data in context and give you a personalized recommendation for the best song of Jerry's that you would like. Once we've gotten that, we're going to aggregate all that together, send that back over to the business process, and send it in to Jerry. He'll say, yeah, that's the right song, send it off to BMI, and hopefully BMI will accept it, and we'll get into the onboarding on the right-hand side of our business process. Perfect. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started for Jerry here. Curtis?
Okay. So let's actually run this process, right? So we've got new capabilities as part of our BlueWorks Live tool online to be able to create processes that actually execute. Let's go ahead and run this. So as we run this, our process is underway. Things are happening. We're going down the path that makes sense, in this case for Mind the Gap, as they're submitting their music rights to BMI. And so now we're at this step where we need your help. So what I'm going to do is bring up our little dashboard that's going to show us kind of the results live. And I'm going to open the polls. So hopefully your phone changed just like mine did up here on the screen. So I'm going to submit here, my favorite genre, what type of song style I like. Oh, I like fast songs. Let's go for 120 beats per minute. And so what happens here is that we get the opportunity to come and see the results coming in as this is happening. So while those results are coming in, I'm going to turn it over to Jeff, and Jeff is going to walk us through the business rules that are happening behind the scenes here as we go.
All right, perfect. Great. So in front of you now, while we kind of switched roles here, you see the Operational Decision Manager's Decision Center console. This would be where the rule authors, those business users that are controlling the decisions, are going to come to change some of the data. So here you see a nice social-based interface to interact with as a rule author. And we're going to come over to our library here of different decision services. Let me go ahead and, how do I refresh?
Yeah, we can refresh.
Thank you. Perfect. We're going to come in and grab our business rules. There's a couple that are used in this particular decision. We're going to come into the decision table that you'll actually see has some of the song names on it. So on the left-hand side, you see the data elements that are being sent in from your mobile device questions into the cloud and over, and then using to make this decision. On the right-hand side, you see some of the songs that are being sent down for you for recommendations. A New Way, Tomorrow, Bring Back the Funk. Those are all the different songs, and the combinations will dictate which one we get to choice. You'll notice style and tempo are there. We also have personality type as well. Now, I might know Curtis's personality type, and maybe mine as well. I probably don't know everyone's personality type in this room. So that's actually an interesting attribute that we determined from another business rule. So let's come back, and I'll show you an example of that business rule. So here's a simple text rule we're using as well. It uses a couple data elements. The first one of which is actually a data element Curtis was nice enough to pass to me from the actual platform from your mobile device, the time it took you to complete that survey process. So if it's less than about 5 seconds, or 5,000 milliseconds, and a combination of other items, then we're going to set the personality type. Well, at least for how you like Jerry's songs, maybe not your overall personality type. So once we've set that, we combine all these up, we make an overall decision, and we send it off to the overall process. Okay. Well, let's send it back to the dashboard. We'll see how we're doing. Curtis,
okay.
Go ahead and take it away.
So let's take a look at what we saw. Now, it looks like we did successfully bring down some networks here, so don't worry. We can still get our final result. So I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to close our polls. And so we're going to see which song it was that was the winner. And it was Regression. Okay, so I don't know if anybody's heard Regression, but maybe if we could just play our winning song.
Right, cool.
Okay, not bad, not bad. You guys made a good choice. Okay, so that was our crowdsourced version of the song that we picked. So now that wasn't the full process, right? So that was the part here where we chose what song to submit. So let me go ahead and continue on this process now. And we'll submit that song into BMI, and then BMI has the opportunity to decide whether they're going to accept it. In this case, they accept it. We begin the onboarding of the new artist, and Jerry's and Mind the Gap's music rights are now being managed by BMI successfully.
Perfect. So, great, awesome. In context here, we made a couple things. We executed a business process. Using our cloud capabilities in BlueWorks Live, we've executed that process, or used a business process manager execution capabilities for additional integration. We also made an in-data context decision, which is great for all of you. You received a personalized decision on your mobile devices using that customer centricity as well, and provided insight to that business process. So we did a couple things there of our process imperatives.
Yep, absolutely. So that important element of being able to reach your customers or your employees wherever they're at through that mobile channel as part of your business processes is very key. And we hope you enjoy some of the new capabilities in BlueWorks Live Execute. Okay, thank you.
Right. So we'll welcome Jerry to BMI, I think, right?
Oh yes, absolutely. We got to put up our welcome.
Perfect.
Welcome.
Right. Welcome,
hey,
Jerry.
All right. We're going to welcome David back up to the stage.
All right, thanks a lot, Jeff and Curtis. That's a really cool demo here. So I think what we're going to do is spend the next few minutes going a little deeper on our process imperatives. Right, you heard Marie touch on these earlier in the conversation, and what I want to do now is take you through these in more detail, because these process imperatives, we think of them as key how-to information or prescriptive approach information to help you get value out of your reinvention of business operations. And when you're reinventing them, ensuring that you're focused on customer centricity. So the first of our 4 imperatives is acting in context with data. And so I think it's well known that there's all sorts of data around and in your business. It's coming from things like mobile phones. It's coming from geospatial information. There's even data about what your customers are saying and thinking about your business, right? And you can get their click streams as well. What you may not know about this data is that this data loses its value relatively quickly. In fact, we call this the half-life of data. And so when you're thinking of needing to be able to execute hundreds, thousands, or millions of tactical and operational decisions, you need to be aware and you need to be able to leverage the contextual data that you have for your applications. And you need to not only be doing it with the way that you can act on it, but you need to make sure that those actions are done in a personalized and proactive way so that what you're doing is reaching out to your client when it matters most. Makes no sense to send a really cool text message and offer to a client 30 minutes after he's left the store. In fact, when they talk about contextual half-life of data, it turns out that most of the data loses its value in less than 30 minutes. And in some cases, it loses its value in 6 seconds. right? Imagine that, 6 seconds. So here's where we can help. Our operational decision management tool is a platform for taking and collecting data-generating entities and then enabling you to act in that context. And using our IBM Business Process Manager tool, you can actually execute these actions and track them to completion, ensuring that nothing falls through the crack. So let's talk about our second imperative. This is all about driving speed and simplicity into your business. And we see our smarter process capabilities in the cloud as really offering 3 distinct advantages, 3 distinct opportunities. And today, the cloud is a great equalizer, right? It's something that enables a small business to think big and compete. First, it lowers the bar entry. It makes it easier for people in your business to contribute to your business transformation. It brings more skills to the table. The second thing it does is our smarter process capabilities apply to a broader set of problems. So it broadens adoption. So not only are we bringing more people into the room, we're expanding the aperture for the problems and capabilities that you can focus on. And it's for companies of all sizes. Large companies, but also we can deliver cloud capabilities in our BPM tools all the way out to companies of 1. And then the third way we see our cloud capabilities really changing your business, enabling you to reinvent your business operations more quickly, is with faster time to value. And this faster time to value is because there's nothing to install. There's nothing to manage. You only begin to rent the features or the platform to increment or to build your own transformation solutions. And so today we have a whole slew of capabilities ranging from our BlueWorks Live capabilities, which is our process and discovery tool, to our BPM platform that you can rent and customize and build your own transformational business flows, to also workflow and rules as a service, which have now been delivered out to our BlueMix environment. And I think all of these value points are borne out in a recent IBM IBV study, or our institutional business value study, where it says over 70% of the pay staters are turning to the cloud to get faster value. Let's move on and talk about our third imperative. So this is all about accelerating customer engagement. And today, your customers, well, they touch your business in many different ways. In fact, when they touch your business or they interact with your business, they're doing it with a wide set of expectations as well. And it ranges from wanting to be able to, well, get a near real-time response, like I just need a quick quote for my car insurance, all the way down to perhaps the need to sort of act as a trusted advisor or deliver important counsel that allows somebody to do something like deal with a change in financial status. And while it's true that all of these initiatives need to include, and do include, mobile and omni-channel capabilities, what's really important here is that your platform for delivering transformations is able to handle the full work spectrum or work style, because you won't be able to consistently deliver an excellent customer experience unless you're able to do all 3 of these key important work styles. First is straight-through personalized automation, quickly onboarding, sell-throughs, digital channels, to guided workflow where you give some information, but all the way down to knowledge work where you're able to sort of engage at a higher value service opportunity with your clients. Let's go on and touch on our fourth imperative. And this is all about digitizing the physical world in IoT. And we see this as an enormous opportunity and potential for smarter process. In fact, we see IoT as a way to enable the unique view into your business operations, right? A unique view into your business operations. And it's unique because you have things that are censored in your physical world. You're now able to see what's going on. So imagine a quick use case here. Shipping company, large ships, large containers, packages, leaving the dock, on their destination to wherever. Turns out that maybe the customs documentation isn't on board. It isn't on board for whatever reason. The ship still needs to leave, otherwise it's a loss of money. As the ship leaves, it's en route to its destination, your business operations can essentially sense that it's within 100 kilometers of its destination, can put an urgency selection on the documentation for the customs, can deliver that, and no overhead, no cost, no time lost, and there you have it. It's no wonder that McKinsey has estimated that there's a 36 trillion, that's a trillion with a T, business opportunity around operating costs in some of these major logistics and companies. So what I'd like to do now is get back to another live story of how our clients are improving their operations and reinventing what they do in the context of their work. And so let me introduce a couple of my colleagues from Kaiser Permanente, and it's Terry Cameron and David Herring. And what I'd like to do is have them come up and take us through their live example of their customer care business operation. So Terry, David, welcome to the stage. 4 minutes, that's all I need.
Okay.
Just 4 minutes,
David. Thank you, Dave. It's our pleasure today to share with you the journey that Kaiser Permanente has taken on our driving to smarter process. A lot of you know Kaiser Permanente already, but for those that you don't, I'll share a little bit with you. Many of you are one of our 9 million members today, and if you're not, we operate in 8 different states and District of Columbia. What we do is we're a totally integrated healthcare company. That means we're both the insurance company as well as providing care to our members. That's different than the way most healthcare companies operate. The other important thing to note about Kaiser Permanente is that we have the largest private electronic healthcare record in the entire world. We have over 20 million members, information going back about 20 years in our databases of that electronic health record. That's our greatest asset that we have on the IT end, as well as in patient care. So why did we even start on this smarter process journey? Well, as you can imagine, improve patient care and the patient experience. That's the number one thing that we're really attempting to accomplish here. I talked to a lot of people in the business, and we found a real sweet spot of where we can use this technology, and that's in managing our operations in real time. As I went out and talked to the business, I found that we had nothing there. This was all done manually, still is done manually today, and that's where our opportunities really, really exist. So, how did we do it? We started out back in 2006, and that's when we built our SOA infrastructure. A lot of you were at Impact back around that time, and we had back here on the screen the giant letters SOA and all of that, and I know you all remember that, but what did that really mean? That was the building blocks to get to where we want to go today, and that is the smarter process. We spent quite a bit of time building that out, and I think we were quite successful at it. With the help of IBM, we use their message broker, we use Data Power, we use ITCAM, we use just all of the entire IBM stack on that SOA. And it was a long journey, but well worth it. Last year in 2014, we introduced Business Process Management and Business Monitor. David's going to show you some of the things that we've done in there. That's real. And this is where we started really getting the return on investment of that SOA infrastructure. SOA was great by itself, but when we get into smarter process, that's where you're going to really get your return on investment. We're now working on some POCs about smarter process. We're doing event management. We're doing decision management and real-time decision making, and we're running that on Peer System today. And David will also show you some of that, what we're working on the POC as we move forward. So how does this all come together? This was our vision right from the beginning, and we've been very good at following the formula to move there. If you look at the very bottom up here on the charts, our SOA messaging bus, that was the hard part. But today, we have over 600 systems hooked up to that SOA messaging bus, quite a few. A lot of hard work went into that. We also have around 500 enterprise web services also sending real-time information into that messaging bus. All of that data, that gives us about 2 billion events per month that we could draw on in real time. And that is the value that we hear. We have to have that before we can really use the smarter process. On the left side of the chart up here is what we call our real-time piece. We have the event management, where we actually complex event pieces, and decision management. That's what we're working on the POC. All of these are interrelated, as you see. As we look at events and we make decisions using the rules engine, we can drop down in and kick off a business process, or it could be the other way around. A business process can kick off, use the decision management, or it could actually look at other events and call different things back from the messaging bus. None of these things work alone. There's an integration of all these products that allow us to really get to where we want to be. On the other side, the right side, and this is just a piece I don't want you to forget, because we all get really, we get focused on one piece at a time, but the other side is our data at rest and our analytics all there. Well, we take all of those analytics, and that's how we decide what those real-time decisions are going to be. Today, we take all of those events that go through the messaging bus, and we drop them into a landing zone, which is really a large Hadoop database. And that Hadoop database, we then run analytics on it for years at a time of old data. But we can actually call those models that we create with the static data and apply it to real-time data as we go. David, would you like to show them some of the stuff we're doing with BPM?
Absolutely, Terry. Thank you. Let's talk about our BPM program. In February of 2014, we ran a discovery workshop for our first BPM project. We used a combination of discovery workshop and playbacks to iteratively develop the solution in phases. So, from discovery workshop to production deployment, it took us 4.5 months. Our timelines were made more aggressive because added to actually having to develop a complex process application, we also had to build all of the IBM environments. So that's 4.5 months for the whole project. So the process we chose was an onboarding process for insurance plans. It was completely manual and had no model, so we used IBM BlueWorks Live to capture the as-is and to-be model. We were able to, with the process application, we created coach UIs. We also had task orchestration. We had email notification, documentation upload, documentation generation, and we also embedded several tracking groups using the process designer's inbuilt performance warehouse, which enabled us to actually track metrics over time. These are some of the examples of the intuitive UIs we're able to build with our user and completely mobile ready out of the box. In fact, our user was instrumental in the development of the reports that we're able to generate, some of which you see here. At Kaiser Permanente, a BPM project means involving and engaging our end users every step of the way. It gives them a feeling of responsibility and ownership of the projects, and also a share in the success. Now, I think this slide actually illustrates that point as well. Now, let's take a look at some of the future directions for what we're doing with ODM Insights. In last December, we actually held what we called a tri-storm to capture some of the let me backstep a little bit. So our objective around real-time decision management is to apply it to real healthcare situations and scenarios. As I said, in December, we actually held a tri-storm where we started experimenting with IBM ODM Insights. The situation that we actually used, the scenario we used, was that of continuous room availability in patient rooms in a hospital. And during that, why we called it a tri-storm is that we actually built rules associated in a 2-day event. These are some of the rooms that we're talking about, the readiness of a patient room. It's not on here, but we also had a check to make sure that rooms were actually cleaned. A rule to actually check that, well, to detect spikes in room admission. A predictive rule to predict room availability based on data coming in to ODM from the previous hour. And finally, a nurse-to-patient ratio. So let's have a look at some of those rules. We actually have a demo which I will bring up. Can we have the demo, please? Thank you. So it's continuous room availability. The internal supply chain in hospitals is serious business. Being able to manage and maintain patient rooms can be all the difference between patients being seen earlier and also avoiding expensive workarounds. We're going to have a look at 2 of those rules. The first one is the readiness of patient rooms. The scenario that we have here is that of a cardiac nursing unit which has 16 patient rooms. As we enter the scenario, as you can see, 4 of the rooms, in fact 5 of the rooms are actually available. Each room could be in a different state. It can be ready, in use, which means occupied, dirty, clean, or ready again. So let's have a look at the scenario. Let's say that a room is dirty, room 6 is dirty and we need it cleaned, so we can assign a crew to go and clean it. While room 8, or actually let's take room 1, is clean, but we need a nurse to go and check that it's completely stocked and supplied. So basically, using the IBM rule, very quickly, these 2 rooms can actually come back online. So the rule behind this would be a simple piece of conditional logic, similar to the one that Jeff was actually showing you earlier. It's in a very understandable notation, a very understandable language. So that's our first example. The other thing that we noticed when we were going through this tri-storm as well is that some of the more complex rules that we're able to build actually are built on a foundation of the simpler rules. So you can build your rules in a very modular fashion, which means reuse and much more maintainability, encapsulation, all of those good things about design. Which brings me to the second rule, which is a more complex rule, the nurse-to-patient ratio. If we enter this scenario, what we find is that we have the same ward, but in this case, we're tracking that there is a nurse-to-patient ratio of 1 nurse for every 4 patients. The problem is, of course, if 1 nurse were to actually leave, it would break the ratio, and then we would have to find somehow a way of actually assigning a nurse very quickly, because there's a timeline involved. So let's actually take this scenario. A nurse leaves the ward. As you can see, on the dashboard is triggered, the ratio is broken, a nurse is assigned, and it fixes the ratio. We're back to 4:1. So the next rule I'm actually going to show you is something that IBM ODM Insights brings to the party, in that we're going to experiment with geospatial, and then we're also going to experiment with time-related rules. Geospatial and the idea of geography. You want to make sure that, well, in this case, what we're going to do is crowdsource the problem. If a nurse leaves the ward, what we can do is via a geospatial rule to send a notice to all available and qualified cardiac nurses to pick up the task and take the assignment to come back to the ward. So let's actually try this one. Again, the nurse leaves the ward. We've got a little timeline for a feeling of suspense here. And we crowdsource the problem by notifying all cardiac nurses coming to the proximity of the ward. And in this case, a nurse accepts the assignment, and the yellow depicts they're en route back to our cardiac unit. So again, our ratio is restored, and we're all very happy. Let's add an extra dimension to this, and let's add the dimension of time, which is also what IBM ODM Insights brings to the party. This time, I'm going to break the ratio by adding a patient. As you can see, the ratio is broken. And again, we try and crowdsource the rule, or crowdsource the problem by notifying all available cardiac nurses. However, in this situation, no nurse picks up the alert, and using a time-related rule, we can escalate the situation to a charge nurse. So what we see there is that we have a geospatial rule and a time rule working in tandem. And the charge nurse then can actually take the appropriate action. It's almost as though our automated rule system then becomes a support system, which is perhaps the way it should be designed. So, in this demo, we saw ODM Advanced Decision Server Insights ability to sense the nurses coming to and forth from the nursing unit, build, put the data in context to the nursing unit, which is something that I think Marie was talking about at the beginning of the hour, decide, notice that the ratio had been broken, and decide which was the appropriate rule, whether to crowdsource the problem with the geospatial rule, or to actually escalate the problem to the charge nurse and actually send the notification to either the nurse, the cardiac nurse, or to the charge nurse. Terry, over to you.
Thank you, David. So you've kind of seen what we've done here at Kaiser Permanente. We've, leveraged our SOA. That was the big piece at the beginning, and that was the hardest part of this. And the rest of it is really the fun part. This is the part where David and I really enjoy our jobs. So we've developed smarter processes with BPM, the employer onboarding. Now we're starting to report, aggregate, display those messages on Business Monitor, and that gives us real-time alerting. All of this is new. This is really exciting stuff at Kaiser Permanente. And now, with the POCs and our next steps and where we're going, is we're going to get into the smarter process pieces. And we're really happy that we're doing this. This is fun stuff, and I hope every one of you will get to where we're going as well. Thank you.
Sorry, good job. Thank you. Thanks, David. Great. So now let's start to wrap this up. So it's great to hear customer stories like BMI and Kaiser Permanente, and it's exciting to see those sorts of things and the value that is being achieved with the product. And so that actually drives us to do additional investments in our portfolio. So here's 3 topics that are part of our strategic investments for 2015. The first one involves analytic process or advanced analytics process, including bringing together cognitive computing and some of our process and case tools. And this can best be summed up as, imagine being able to ask Watson in the middle of a guided workflow, what should be the next step? And let it ingest and create a hypothesis for you to carry on. Or imagine that Watson is able to have access to your process analytics and that you can ask it how to best optimize the process or create a new opportunity associated with the process. The second topic is about bringing decisions to the cloud, and this is our ODM on Cloud. It's a rental model where you can now use the DevOps scenario to outsource the capabilities and get that faster time to value with decisions. And then lastly, we have a new app builder for our BlueWorks Live environment. So most of you are familiar with our BlueWorks Live environment where you can do process and decision discovery and document your flows. This capability introduces runtime function and app builder where you can now take aim at what we think of as opportunistic processes in the cloud. So as a final chart and begin to wrap up, let me just call out a couple of the highlights and announcements that we're going into this week. So the first is we have new revs of our BPM tool. And specifically, there's enhanced capabilities around our knowledge work and case management capabilities. We've also introduced a unified task list for Federated Portal so you can have a single work basket across multiple BPM deployments. We've also introduced new pricing models for our BPM on Cloud offering as well. And then from an operational and decision management standpoint, our next release is also being announced here at the show. It includes some of the act in context with data or the decision server insights capabilities that we've discussed today and demoed today. It also includes some business-led capabilities for doing simulation and testing of rules before you change them. And then lastly, there's some enhanced governance framework around managing rules projects as a whole set. So that was a lot of information in a short time. There are some additional sessions that you can go to see. I think we have over 150 sessions on our Smarter Process and decision management track here. I think 70 of them are by clients. So hopefully you can go and get yourself immersed in the details, follow up on these sessions. And I'd like to say thank you for your time today and enjoy the rest of the conference.